You're currently watching the Stella Modeling User Guide video series, which is a series that is intended to be a companion to the Stella M User Guide. This video will go over households in a single-year model. In this video, we will cover key concepts in Stella M related to households, and then there will be an overview of the households window, and then we'll talk about entering baseline year households estimates, target year households estimates, and entering the estimated number of households served in the Pathways pane. In Stella M, to build the model, the user estimates the annual number of households expected to experience homelessness in a year for the inflow and long-term homeless universes. Before we talk more about household estimates, let's discuss some key concepts. First, served versus unserved. Households that are considered served are households that are offered assistance in a pathway to housing within the model year. And households considered unserved are households not expected to be offered or not enrolled in a pathway to housing within the model year. Then the universes. A universe is the group of households experiencing homelessness that is the focus of the model. The inflow universe represents households coming into the system each year, including new and returning households. And the long-term homeless universe represents households that were in the system, but not served in the previous year. Stella M allows users to model separately for the inflow universe and the long-term universe and can present results for each universe separately or for the two combined. The reason that we do estimates for the two universes is because the needs of one universe of households and subsequently the resources needed to assist that universe are likely to be different than the other. So for example, though both the inflow and long-term homeless universes could include households that would be best served in permanent supportive housing, the proportion is probably different. So maybe 10% of inflow households need permanent supportive housing, whereas 80% of long-term homeless households need permanent supportive housing. Or maybe people experiencing long-term homelessness have higher barriers to obtaining housing, so they may need longer shelter stays. Then in a single-year model, there is the baseline year and the target year. The baseline year is the year representing the current state of the homeless system. In single-year models, adding data for the baseline year is optional, but can be really useful to highlight gaps between your current system and your ideal system. And the target year is the year representing the ideal system. Now let's get into Stella M itself. Right now, you're currently looking at a completely new single-year model. In Stella M, household estimates are important because Stella M needs an estimate of the number of households expected to experience homelessness in a year to be able to determine the amount of inventory needed in your ideal system. So to add these household estimates, we need to go to the Households window, and that can be accessed through the Households button in the navigation toolbar. It's the one that looks like a group of people. And once we click that, we get the Households window. As always, at the top right, there is an I button that has more information. If you click on it, this one has a link to the System Modeling Toolkit and lets us know that in that toolkit, there's more information on how to develop these household estimates. At the top of the Households window, there is an explanation of what should be entered in these fields. And below that, you have two sections, one for the baseline year estimate and then one for the target year estimates. Both the baseline year and the target year sections ask for separate estimates of inflow and long-term homeless universes. As we mentioned before, in a single-year model, the baseline year household estimate is optional. Adding baseline estimates will document your current state and will allow you to see the gap between the baseline year and the target year within the model results. The baseline year is the year representing the current state of the homeless response system, so in this case, you would be entering the estimated number of households that are experiencing homelessness in the current state of your system. As you can see, when you have a new model, there are no numbers in these fields, these baseline fields yet. All of them say 0. If you are completing the baseline year estimate section, you will need to split inflow and long-term estimates into 2 categories: households served and households who are still unserved. The concept of served in Stella M in the baseline section means they are served in a way that is expected to lead to rehousing during the baseline year, whereas unserved means they are not expected to be enrolled in a pathway to housing during the baseline year. The term unserved is slightly confusing because households may actually receive some outreach or shelter services, but the key distinction is that they are expected to remain in the homeless system, and the system will need to identify a rehousing strategy for them in a future year. The data guide in the System Modeling Toolkit is a great reference for what data you would need or could use to come up with these estimates. Now, the next section is for the target year estimates. This is the required section. For this section, there has to be values of greater than 0 for the model to populate. As you can see, this section does have some default values. Users can go ahead and build out the rest of the model using the default values here if you are still working on developing household estimates. And then once you have your households estimates, you can come back to this households window and update these numbers. As a reminder, the inflow universe represents the households that are expected to enter the homeless system in the target year, and the long-term homeless universe represents the households that are experiencing ongoing homelessness who entered homelessness prior to the target year. Let's say my COC has estimated 500 households for the inflow universe and 100 households for the long-term homeless universe for our target year. Now that we have these numbers entered, let's click Update. And let's scroll all the way down to the modeling panel and take a look at the Pathways pane. The Pathways pane is the leftmost pane in the modeling panel. And this is what that pane would look like if you have added household information, but no pathways information has yet been added. So now let's take a look at a model that has the same household estimates information added, but also already has pathways added, and scroll down to the modeling panel. As we're scrolling down, I want to point out that in the dashboard and in the results preview, there is no data populating yet, but let's keep scrolling down to the modeling panel. In the modeling panel, each universe has its own section. We have the inflow section up here and the long-term homeless section down here. And both of these you can collapse or expand using the arrows within that section. And this is what the Pathways pane would look like if you already have pathways entered into your model. In this pane, we have the total, which is the household estimate that we entered in the households window that we were just on. So when we entered the estimated number of households in the inflow and long-term homeless universes. Now, however, we have to set the number of households that are planned to be served in the target year for each of these universes. Again, the concept of served means they are expected to be on a path to rehousing, whereas unserved means they are expected to remain in the homeless system, and the system will need to identify a rehousing strategy for them in a future year. Having the served number set as 0, which is what it defaults to when creating a new model, is the reason why the dashboard and the results preview charts above are not populating for our target year. In most cases, for a single year model, you are modeling an ideal homeless response system, and therefore would be planning to serve all households. So putting the total number of households in the served field, which we'll do in a little bit, would show us the amount of resources it would take to rehouse everyone. The Pathways pane is dynamic, so any changes you make in the served field, it will automatically calculate how many are unserved based on the total number. So if we change this to 500, it automatically changed the unserved number to 0. Same with the long-term homeless universe. The results preview, which is the section right above, is also dynamic. So when we change the served number for both of these universes, if you remember previously, this results preview was empty. And now that we've added how many are expected to be served in the target year, the changes are reflected in the results preview as well. The rest of the Pathways pane will be covered in another video. Thank you for watching this video, which is part of the Stella Modeling User Guide video series. Other videos in this series will cover different aspects of the site and how to use Stella M. On your screen is the URL for the Stella and System Modeling page on the HUD Exchange. That page will have more information and more resources for you, including the Stella M User Guide, which this series is a companion to. If you have a question about Stella M, please submit an AAQ. The URL for that is on your screen as well. Disclaimer: this material is supported by funding under an award from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Neither the U.S. government nor any of its employees makes any warranty, express or implied, or assumes any legal liability or responsibility for the material. No references contained herein imply an endorsement of the material by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, its employees, or the U.S. government. Any opinions contained within the material are those of the authors and/or contributors and do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development or the U.S. government. Thank you for watching.